My name's Heather. I'm from Lake Elsinore, California.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Born and bred?
Born and bred Southern California. Moved out here to get treatment. Before it got good,
Yeah, what led you to looking into treatment?
I was fucking miserable.
Okay.
I was living on the streets for about 3 years, since I was 17 until the age of 20.
So you were full-blown homeless?
Homeless, living in a tent.
I didn't know that.
Had a hammock, someone stole my hammock. Yeah.
That's gotta be pretty crappy when I have a tent and a hammock and someone takes half of what I own.
Exactly. I was sleeping in it when they just stole it.
Wow.
Yeah, so I don't know, the drugs, growing up, I was never really thought I'd be like a fucking drug, can I cuss?
You could say drug addict.
Okay, never thought I'd be a drug addict.
That's fine.
Who really grows up to think that?
Yeah.
I had a pretty normal childhood, played softball, family was around, family had a bit of a drinking thing, but I mean, they were always supportive,
Okay.
And, something just switched one day. I was going into high school and I started smoking a lot of pot. Got prescribed 3 different forms of benzos, and then got put on those, was abusing those.
So had you done anything before high school, or was this kind of the turn of events?
I drank a little bit,
Okay.
in middle school I'd take a water bottle of vodka to look cool, it was never because I enjoyed it.
Right.
And it was always this facade I had to put on, So I was doing all that shit, and I was doing all that stuff.
That's fine. Just be you.
Okay.
Just be you. Don't worry about it. If there's cussing out there, it's the internet. People can handle it.
Okay.
Just be you. And what we look for is authenticity. Not, I think this is what they want to hear, but being authentic. I didn't even know that you were homeless for that time. So that's huge. And I get to know you better too through these. That's why I actually love them.
Yeah.
But so in high school, you got prescribed benzos.
Yeah, 3 different forms.
So how did that happen going into high school?
So I started I don't know, my brain just wanted to it was always drawn to a darker sense,
Okay.
No matter how happy I was always wanting to revert back to what was comfortable, what was dark. So my mom took me to see a psychiatrist because I started self-harming, which I think was in a form a cry for help.
Yeah.
Because with me it's I'm not the type that can ask for help. My bone will be sticking out of my body and someone will ask if I'm fine. I'm like, yeah, it's cool, I'll figure it out.
I don't need you. I've
Yeah.
got this.
Yeah, so it's asking for help is really hard. So I started that.
So that must have been tough, allowing that process to go see a professional.
Yeah, and I went against my will. It was my parents.
Okay.
Yeah, I did not want to go whatsoever because I'm fine, I don't need help. And but when I went, he just threw a bunch of benzos at me, a bunch of antidepressants, called it a day, and then...
And family thought, we went to the professional, this will
This
help
is gonna
with
work.
my daughter.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
So I was on those for a year, and then my parents didn't like how zombified I was, how out of it I was, and they took me off of it. And so when I was off of them, my anxiety increased so much, so I started smoking a lot of pot,
So for a full year, it was more of a sedation and kind of just mask the symptoms.
Yeah, any part of that high school.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And then once you got pulled off, it kicked into overdrive, and then it became self-medication through marijuana?
And drinking.
And drinking, okay.
Yeah, so I started doing that, and then
And was family aware at that time, or
they knew
were you
I was
hiding
smoking
it?
pot and drinking. They just thought it was a normal teenage thing,
Okay.
But obviously there was a lot more to it. They didn't know the excessive amount I was doing,
Right.
but they didn't know it was at school, before school, after school, it was a lot.
Yeah.
And so then
You were talking about high school, you got off, you were self-medicating.
yeah, and so then eventually all that stops working, and so I started finding the pills in the cupboard, a bunch of narcotics, pain pills and shit, and then so I started taking those every day, like those made me feel amazing. Like those just like overdid like any like pot I'd smoke or anything I drank. Like those were it.
Yeah, it was the solution. I don't have to feel.
Exactly. It numbed my body and my mind, you know? And then
And at that point, were your parents aware of it? Or was it? So it was hidden at that point?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That part I was hiding. And so then like what got me into harder drugs is like my next door neighbor like noticed like I was talking, me and him were like pretty good friends. He was like a 40-year-old man and I was like 16, 17.
Wow.
And so he like, I told him I was taking those and he just recently started getting into like heroin and meth.
Oh my God.
And so he was like, well, when you run out of those, you know, like I got something much better. And so that same day I smoked both heroin and meth and like I was like, this is it. I was like, I have found it. And so it didn't take long. It took like a month or two for my parents to find out.
Okay.
And then once they did, they tried sending me to like this outpatient program, like through Kaiser. And that just really didn't work for me because it was like a lot of like the medical aspect, not like emotional, spiritual. So I completed that program, but I was getting high the whole time. So I was getting high, and then, but when I was in there, I learned so much more, you know, like I learned how to shoot up. And like, so I started intravenously doing drugs, and it took, I want to say like 3 months for me to like get kicked out and be on the streets. Yeah.
From home?
From home.
So you went through that program and it wasn't working, and then finally the parents out of that attempt just going like, we don't know what to do.
Yeah, I mean it was more of like a mutual decision. Like they said you can live here but you can't get high. I said, but I want to get high, so I'm not going to live here. You know, like it was, both of us agreed that it
must have been so tough on both of you guys, the family dynamic.
Yeah, no, I mean we've seen better days.
Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have a younger sister and an older sister. Yeah, so
how did that affect them?
You know,
in your
at the
relationship?
time, I didn't give a shit. I did not care about them. I didn't even think about them and how it would affect them. But looking at it now, like it has majorly impacted them. Like anytime like I relapsed after that, like in attempts of getting sober, like just like they were just scared, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I never really thought about, or I do now, but back then, like I didn't care.
Yeah, then it was just survival, and then it was I found my way, and then so over 3.5 years, I can't imagine. Did you try to get sober during that time at all?
I did. I went to like 3 other treatment centers. Well, 3.5. I left one prematurely.
3.5. Well, let me ask you this, because it sounds like you tried it. You kind of tried on your own, tried a couple different places. So what changed that brought you here and has led you to where you are now? How much time do you have sober now?
I have 9 months.
First of all, it's freaking awesome. It's a miracle.
It's a miracle. It's amazing.
And how's your relationship with your family?
We talk every day. I FaceTime my sisters every day. Talk to my mom at least twice a day.
So there's been a lot of work to heal through that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what was different with your experience of coming here that had you dig in and actually say this is something that is worth fighting for?
You know, it was because I mean like I attempted to get sober many times before, but like that was just going into treatment. Like there was never any program involved, no sponsors, no working the steps, like. And so I finally attempted to do that back July 27th of 2018.
Okay.
That was my first sobriety date. And so I got a sponsor, worked the steps, like everything was, my life was turning around. I came here.
So can we jump into that really quick? Because that's the part that so many people miss is, okay, I'm in the pain today. I see what I want, but how do I, some will say flip that switch. What was it? What was the triggering event, or what happened where you made that conscious decision and said, I'm doing it this time? You know, my first sobriety date, it was actually the deputies of Riverside County that chose my sobriety date. The deputy said, you're getting sober. Basically, they threw me in jail. I was there for 60 days. Okay, so you went to jail. And this is something that we see a lot of the time too, is there's internal and external leverage. Yeah. External leverage works for a finite amount of time. That's what I'm saying, yeah. So
it only worked for so long. Like, they threw me in jail. I had felony robbery and assault. Like, first time I ever had a criminal record. Like, not even a speeding ticket. And then
and that was all because of being under the influence.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's the part that, I mean, I don't want to get in a soapbox, but really wanting to help inform and educate is there's amazing people. When under the drugs is what accelerates this whole thing. And the solution isn't, well, throw them in and lock them away. The solution is, how do we address the trauma, the pain that has led to this, so then we can go ahead, work through the drugs to get to the real core issue, and that's where that internal healing.
Yeah, because I mean, drugs and alcohol, it's a solution, but only for so long.
Well, it's a brilliant solution because it works, like you said, like that.
Instantaneously.
One of the best descriptions I've ever heard someone say is, it feels like I'm getting a hug from Jesus. Like,
I say hug from my mom.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
But then all these consequences. So it sounds like you went to jail. You got sober for however much time that was. And then did you stay sober while you were inside, or once you got outside, you stayed sober for a little bit?
Yeah, so they sent me to a residential treatment for 6 months.
Okay.
And so I completed those 6 months, and I built up a life. Everything was beautiful. Like, my family was back, my car was back. Like, I was living here at home. I called it a home, which was crazy. And then I got, those 6 months, and I was like, let's go get high. And so I went out that night, and like, I just felt like a pit in my stomach like the entire time. Like, I didn't want to do it, but for some reason I could not stop myself from doing it, which was insane. And then so I ended up getting high, and within maybe 18 hours, everything was taken from me. My car somehow broke down, which was running perfectly fine. Got kicked out, was back on the streets again, and I was out there getting high for maybe like 2 weeks until like I was fucking miserable. And I then I knew what an actual sober life looked like. And then I went back to what I had, and I didn't want it. So then I went back into treatment for another 60 days, and I really, really wanted it this time. Like, it wasn't the cops that wanted it for me, it was me. I wanted it for myself. I made the call, and I think that's what the big difference was this time around. It's like, before it was always an ultimatum, it was the cops. Like, this time, like,
external leverage.
Exactly. This time it was me. I wanted it.
So here's the interesting thing, and this is where you get in a lot of debates. Some people say relapsing is part of the program. I don't believe it has to be, but what I've seen, what you just said, it's not a get out of jail free card, but it is an amazing way of stating, okay, I've got this, I'm good, let me try this again. And then fortunately, within 2 weeks of literally realizing the consequences and saying, you know what, I can see what I had and what I can build to. I'm back all in. And so that sounds like that was the pivotal moment that kind of solidified.
Absolutely. Like, I don't look at that like that relapse was horrible, but I look at it as like a blessing, because like, otherwise I would still be thinking in the back of my head, like, maybe I can just go out and do this again and do it successfully, but I can't.
That's that lie, that little voice that creeps up. Well, so then you got back into it. Well, fast forward a little over 9 months now. What's life like now for you?
It's amazing. I work a full-time job at a treatment center. I'm a tech.
So you are now paying it forward.
Yes.
And what before was literally like a prison for you.
Yes.
You're able to actually take now and share to connect with other people.
Absolutely.
That's why I love this program. I can take something that was so horrendous, this traumatic experience, and actually look as I heal through and be able to use this to launch me forward, and now to relate to people that are where I was and to give them hope and strength.
Exactly.
So that is awesome. Okay, so you're working full time, you're working at a treatment center. What else?
I'm going to nursing school, which is the treatment center I'm working at. Everything just lines up perfectly. It's insane. Like, they're hesitant to hire me, because when they hired me, I only had 6 months. But I really kind of like proved myself to them and like killed the interview.
How did that feel?
Amazing.
Of being able to through the work, seeking the internal validation, be able to say, here's who I am, and having that mirrored back of, holy cow.
Yeah, it's going from like the homeless girl on the streets that like people would stare at like I'm a monster, to someone that's like in charge of like other people, like in charge of like making their lives better, is insane. Like, it's so cool. But I'm going to nursing school.
That's awesome.
And my family, me and them are so close. I'm seeing them tomorrow, actually. I see them probably almost every weekend because there's a distance, but every time I can, like, they want me to be there. Like, they don't hide their purses, they don't lock the doors, like, they want me to be around.
Wow. I'm trying to get too emotional on these things, but that part is so amazing that a family can heal through just such excruciating pain.
Absolutely.
And be able to reconnect, because there's a saying, a couple of doctors say this, and I fully agree with it, of addiction is isolation, therefore recovery is community.
Yes.
And so to have that environment at home where the trust is there, with and still living with us in this sober living setting, and having women to come back to that you can actually share with each other of, because the crap still happens. That's one part that I find with so many people is this expectation of, oh, once I get sober, life gets perfect.
No.
It's like, no, actually, it becomes harder in many ways, but I've become better and can actually go through it and enjoy the process, as weird as that sounds.
Yeah, it's like a different insight on like why things are happening, and like you have a different acceptance and like gratitude for it, you know? Like you're grateful for the hard times because at least it's like it's quality problems, you know? That
is so huge. Well, first of all, thank you for being willing to share openly like this and be vulnerable and say, here's who I was, here's who I am. Some of that stuff I didn't know about you. Even though I've known you for a little while, I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. That is huge. And I'm just grateful that we got to be a part of your journey and get to see this, and to know that you are now paying it forward at another place, and being able to just send love to people and to help educate them. For some of the people that watch this video, they may be now where you were back then. If you were to go back to yourself, is there anything that you would tell yourself back then?
Just to hang on. And like, if you really, really want the help, you need to go get it, because things can get a lot better.
That's awesome. Thank you. You just seem to get emotional there.
Yeah.
What's that about? That's pretty cool.
Just because back then, like, I thought that was it for me. Like, that's all I was going to become.
So you thought your life was going to be ending quickly?
No.
Or that was the extent of...
That was the extent. That's the greatest I could do, was just be homeless on the streets, you know? And so just to think, like, going from that to this is just insane in my brain. Like,
I saw you connect with something there. That was really cool. So back then, of not seeing where you could be now, and now that you're here, of seeing what the future holds, what does the future hold for you?
A lot of helping people that were like me.
That's awesome. Thank you.